This is Tell Me More, Episode 1 for July 3rd, 2020. On today's show, we welcome Darren and Beth from the Seattle band March to May. They're just days away from releasing a new single. We'll get you the latest scoop on that, ask them about the new album, and bring you some live performances as well. All this and more, just ahead. Today's show is brought to you in part by API Builder. Build, export, and deploy your backend in multiple languages. Give your clients peace of mind knowing that we employ the latest principles in security. Deliver to your clients in hours what used to take you weeks, and easily onboard new team members to the code base. API Builder, we'll take care of the mundane while you handle the insane. All right, welcome to the show. Today we've got March to May in the studio. March to May is a guitar, harp, and piano duo from Seattle, Washington. In 2015, they released their first EP, The Water's Edge. And then in 2017, they released Through the Night, their first studio album. Here we are in 2020, and they're now just days away from releasing their second studio album. Today we're going to spend some time getting to know the band. We're going to hear the latest on that upcoming album titled What I Was and More. And we're going to get to listen to a few live performances. Darren and Beth, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Robbie.
Thanks, Robbie.
Darren, you made us some amazing cocktails just before the show, so I think we're all ready to go here. You want to tell us what was in those?
So it's become kind of a normal cocktail for me in the last few months, I guess, during COVID times. And it's whiskey, Amaro, orange bitters, black walnut bitters. There's no official name for it, but it's quite wonderful.
We'll just call it the Darren.
The Darren.
It was delicious.
I was going to say, he should crowdsource names for this cocktail.
All right. Now, when I listen to your music, I sometimes find it hard to describe your genre. You know, there's elements of pop in there, folk music, orchestral folk, chamber pop. So why don't I let you guys explain your genre in your own words to us?
Do you want to start?
Sure. You are assuming that we are going to do any better of a job than you just did. I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. There are elements of kind of like chamber and sometimes like there's kind of a Baroque instrumentation. Is it pop? Is it folk? Is it adult alternative? Hopefully not the latter.
No.
But yeah, I think our music is kind of hard to define. And I do think that there's this like body of music now that is kind of like straddles a lot of genres. And I think we're solidly in it. So.
Yeah.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, definitely so. I'm talking to other people too. We often ask them, like people, if they're PR, specialists or radio promoters, we say, hey, what do you think? And they will give us a broad range of musical influences as well. They say, well, I hear Celtic influence. I hear, chamber pop. I hear chamber folk. I hear folk pop, modern folk. So, it's really hard to define, and I think that's something we struggle with on a regular basis. We have to define our music, for any number of reasons, but to actually put it in any genre, it just doesn't work.
You can't put March to May in a box.
We cannot.
In many ways, I think that's a good thing, because like you're more versatile, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and for our listeners today who are just discovering you for the first time, why don't you each tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, are you originally from Seattle? If not, how did you end up here?
Yeah.
Take it away, Darren.
Okay. So I was born in Montana. I grew up in Maine, and I moved back to Montana for college and grad school, and then I moved to Seattle about 13 years ago. And so Seattle has definitely become home for me, and I love it here more than I have loved anywhere else I've lived, at least in the United States. And I guess it was, a number of factors that brought me here, but one of those was music, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, so my dad was in the Foreign Service, so while I was born in Washington, D.C., I spent most of my childhood in South America, in Chile, Bolivia, and Panama, and then bounced around a couple of different cities here in the U.S. before moving to Seattle about 8 years ago. And I'm like Darren, I really love it here. I didn't really expect to wind up back on the West Coast. I spent some time on the East Coast before this. But it's definitely become home, and I have a lot of family in this area now. My whole family has actually wound up moving to Seattle in the last year. So, yeah, when I think of home, it's Seattle now.
All right. And how did the band get started once you both found your way to Seattle?
So the story goes, we're on this bonfire on the Washington coast in the dead of winter. But
Well, the real story is that I moved to Seattle and I was looking for a place to live, and
Yeah.
Darren was my Craigslist housemate.
yes, but on that note, we actually literally interviewed in person about 35 people, and 90 plus people applied for this one room. And out of all those people, we finally chose Beth.
This is like bordering very much on flattery.
Well,
That was just so wonderful.
we were impressed, but at that point, I had no idea that Beth played music, that she sang anything at all. We chose her on the basis that she just seemed like a nice person.
And it was actually pretty funny because in Darren's Craigslist ad, when I moved to Seattle, I didn't think I was going to be doing music at all, and actually had a conversation with my mom right before moving out here, where she asked me if I was going to keep playing music or like doing music, because I had never really like conceived of being in a band or anything like that. I just sung a lot in college, and I played the harp recreationally, like very much a hobbyist. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I probably won't find the right outlet, blah, 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 blah. And then literally moved into Darren's house like a week later. But in his Craigslist ad, he had said that he was a musician, and I intentionally like didn't mention anything about also like having a musical side, because I was like, is it gonna be like really weird? Is it gonna be this sort of like join the family band thing? And none of these things sounded good to me, so I said nothing.
Nope. But it wasn't until like about 3 weeks after she moved in, like the two of us plus our housemates and some friends went out to the Washington coast, hence the bonfire story. And we were sitting around a bonfire, and I had my guitar with me. We all had a bit of mulled wine.
Darren kept spiking the mulled wine. He literally kept going back into the cabin and adding more booze to it.
I just had
unbeknownst
wine
to all of us.
So we were all, we had a bit of wine, and we were singing, so we were sitting around this bonfire, and I was playing my guitar and I was singing something, and some random, kind of song creation, and Beth started harmonizing with me, and that was the first time that I really heard her voice, and just was like, wow, like, you have a really, really beautiful voice. And that was my introduction to Beth's musical side.
And I was like, damn, my cover's blown.
And I'm guessing you didn't have the harp on the beach.
No, I didn't.
I didn't know about the harp at that point.
Harps don't fare well in sand. I mean, I guess they're fine. You can get around it. But yeah, of places I would like to play my harp, on a lot of sand is probably not high.
All right, well, that's an interesting story.
I would like to play in places that there are a lot of sand. Let me put that important caveat for future tours. Places with lots of sand, great. Like, can we get a little platform or something?
I think
a rug, anything.
Wow. I think most people end up murdered or just running into a lot of weirdos on Craigslist. So you guys got a band out of it.
We
so
got lucky. No, I agree.
Craigslist, where dreams are made.
All right, so once you guys figured out that you had a good thing going there, what was the first song that you wrote?
So it's funny, we I'll be honest about this. At shows, we often say on our EP right here that song number 5, Embers, is the first song we wrote. And we actually wrote another song called I'll Be There. And it's a song that we have hardly ever played. We've never recorded. It kind of lives out there in the,
in the ether.
In the ether of our minds. But that was actually the first song. But we went to Orcas Island for a songwriting retreat just to see if this would work. And when we were there, we wrote I'll Be There in Numbers. So they were kind of written at the same time, but I guess technically I'll Be There was written first. And most people have never heard it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So something I'm always curious with artists is, how did you come up with your name?
Oh gosh. So it's so funny because I feel like we're supposed to have this like extremely romantic story around it of like, it came to me in a dream. Like a carrier pigeon deposited a note in my lap, and it said March to May.
Here is a carrier, a great blue heron, but yeah.
That's true. Bald eagle. No. But it's actually fairly non-romantic at first. So Darren, before he and I met, he had been playing in a band, or I guess in a duo with a cellist, and that had ended. But they, at one point, they had like this long list of band names that they were sort of going through. And so when Darren and I were looking for a band name, we kind of started there because it was like better than starting with a blank sheet of paper. And March to May was one that really stuck out to us, and it just felt right. And there was a lot of symbolism behind it as we moved forward, just in the sense that we wrote our first song together. So I'll Be There in the Numbers. Wrote our first songs in March and then played our first show as a band in May. So there was that nod to the formative period. There was this feeling of like springtime and like growth. And we liked the alliterative quality, the sense of like marching towards May. And then completely coincidentally, Darren was born in March and I was born in May. So
Yeah.
I like that. Many connections there.
Yeah, lots of symbolism, but not a strong
it's
root.
not great for Google AdWords, I will tell you that.
Oh,
Set
man.
a Google alert for March to May and it's like bikini body, like March to May.
Or now in these times, it's a quarantine period.
Hey,
March
we
to
named
May.
ourselves after COVID.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious, what was the second choice that lost out to it?
There's the blue one.
Prussian Blue.
Prussian Blue.
But then we found out it was like, there was this like group that was like neo-Nazis called Prussian Blue. And we were like, oh, get away from that. And I don't even remember, like I don't know why Prussian Blue would not have been a good name. Like we don't have any real strong ties to that. But
no.
there was a reason it did not become our name.
Prussian Blue, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like we had like a top 5, and we sent it out to a lot of like friends and family, and most people were like March to May. It just like feels good.
And then we wrote it into one of our songs, so it had to be there.
Yeah.
Like, you know how rappers are like, what, and then I'm clearly not a rapper. My stunning career in rap begins.
True.
No,
DJ Mustard on the beat.
Colonel Mustard, excuse me. No, but you know how like a lot of people are like Jason Derulo,
Yeah.
or I guess just Jason Derulo is like Jason Derulo. We have March to May hidden in one of our songs.
Which song is that?
Count the days.
Okay.
Darren, spoiled
Cat's
it.
out of the bag.
We're playing
Damn
it
it.
tonight.
Darren, stop spoiling things.
Spoiler.
Be quiet.
Spoiler alert.
Speaking of spoilers, Beth, you love spoilers, don't you?
do.
She does. See? There you go. You should love this.
I know, but I don't have to like cater to my own wants and needs in this.
Good thing I'm spoiling
That's
it
why
for
I
you.
chose to be on this side of the table.
All right. Now, I introduced you guys as a duo, and for pretty much all of your live shows and music videos, it is just the two of you, but I believe there are some other people that you frequently play with. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. They are just the most amazing, wonderful people and musicians. We've been playing with our drummer for 7 years now, 6 years, 6.5 years or so.
Yeah.
And then our bassist, violinist, and cellist are more recent. But I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, so we play with Paul Murphy on bass, Dave Bush on drums, Lauren McShane on cello, and Ray Minji Lee on violin. And Darren and I say all the time, like, we're so lucky to have our band. Like, I am so grateful all the time. And it's our greatest joy to play with them on stage. I think one of the reasons that we play most of our shows as a duo is mostly driven by logistics. But yeah, we'd love to be playing more shows with them in the future. It really just does depend on schedules, timing, like a bunch of logistics around that.
Yeah.
But I will say, in terms of having them be in music videos, I think we'd love that in the future. But we never want to put the expectation on our bandmates of being like, you've got to be in front of the camera now all the time, because like they're not always comfortable with that. Like I know one of our bandmates who I won't name specifically, but like we would have to drive this person like kicking and screaming onto camera, and then they would probably never talk to us again.
But on our recordings, absolutely so.
Yeah.
It's a full band sound, and we both feel that they add so much to our sound, to our music. We write the songs and the lyrics and the melodies and the core of it. But then when we have drums and bass and cello and violin, it just like it makes it so much more beautiful.
I like that. It's more reasons to. People have to get the album and they have to see the live shows.
Exactly.
It's a different experience every time.
It is.
Now,
This is all just a marketing ploy.
the secret has been revealed. So as a result of that, would you say there are certain songs that you can't play live, or
Great
pretty
question.
much every song can you play live?
Great question. There are a couple songs that we play live, and we have kind of altered it slightly because it just doesn't have that same momentum and kind of oomph that the full band sound has.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think that Sometimes going from a very orchestrated piece of music to something that's much more stripped down is a little bit tricky in terms of the ways that you need to consider rearranging them. Because like when you think about the songs that you really love, when you listen to them in like studio recording versions, like part of the things that you love about those songs often are like where the other instrumentation just sort of like lifts everything up and everything just sort of soars. And if you take that away, like your ear hears something missing. So you have to kind of revise it so that it fits the instrumentation that you're playing with, which for Darren and I at that point becomes like only what we are providing. So yeah, I would say that there are some songs that we definitely don't play as often as a duo, just because we really love the full band sound, and we know that rewriting it would be a more different song.
But it's nice because we're still able to play the song. So 50 years off of our album Through the Night is a great example where the instrumentation just like carries a song, you know, in such a different way with this intensity. But when we play it, we slow the tempo a little bit, you know, we make it a little more of a, like, not a lullaby, but like we soften it. And that just makes the song, I think, you know, still very palatable, you know, to the ears of someone listening to it, you know, if it's just the two of us playing it. And, you know, we don't have to rewrite like any of the lyrics or any of the structure of the song. And we can still play the song in its kind of original core form, but in a very different way. So
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Again, all the more reason to see them live.
Robbie's a great salesperson for us as well.
I'm not. You guys are paying me for this one.
Robbie's not paid to be here.
All right. Well, on the note of instrumentation, then let's talk about that harp. You know, the harp is a pretty unique instrument you don't see all the time. Tell us about that.
It's funny that people are always exactly saying that. So like, it's unique. I never see a harp, but I didn't buy my harp here in Seattle, but the harp maker, Dusty Strings, that made my harp, is located here in Seattle. And when I moved into that Craigslist house, that house was like a handful of blocks away from the Dusty Strings showroom. So like in some ways I'm like, I see harps all the time. What are you talking about? But yeah, so I play a Celtic folk harp. There are a couple of different, or like that's an important distinction because oftentimes when people think about harps, they think about symphonic harps or like basically concert harps, which are the ones that you see in symphonies. So like they're really tall. They're like taller than the harpist sometimes, depending on the harpist. And so those harps are made with pedals. So you actually change keys and sort of go from like a sharp of a note to natural to flat using foot pedals. And a Celtic harp is a smaller harp. You'll see mine later. But you change key with levers. And Celtic harps are usually considered more like folk instrumentation and are often considered sort of student harps or starter harps. But I have never been limited on it. And actually, I really love it because whenever anybody's like, oh, you play a folk harp, I'm always like, yeah, you try carrying a concert harp up 5 flights of stairs for a gig. Like, see ya.
Which we did in Denmark.
Yes.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. But yeah, so I play harp. I started playing harp when I was about 14, which is a little bit late for many. And I didn't play piano first, which is another sort of common route, and though definitely not the only route. But yeah, I really enjoy it.
What made you decide to start playing the harp?
I was very roundabout. I was a competitive gymnast and I injured myself too badly to keep going with that. And I was also like way too tall to be a gymnast. And in retrospect, I'm like, this was a brilliant move by all the adults in my life. I was clueless at the time. But so I was about 14 and I was going from having spent like my entire life basically in a gym. So like going from school directly to like gymnastics practice to having all this free time. And I'm sure that, I mean, I haven't actually asked them this, but like I made the connection like a year ago where I was like, wait a second. Because I'm sure most of the adults in my life were like, this is going to be a disaster. You're like taking a 14-year-old who's like just in high school and like being like, have all this free time that you don't know what to do with that you've never had before. They were like, don't do drugs, play the harp instead. But yeah, I had a friend whose mother played the harp and it caught my interest and that interest was encouraged. So the rest is history.
Now, when you started playing, did you envision being in like a symphony one day? Or?
No, I just played for myself, which sounds very not selfish, but like, yeah, I had no, I liked playing certain repertoire. I really do like a lot of like folk music, and sort of like that like minor key instrumentation that I hear, or at least a lot of the harp music and a lot of the folk music that I listened to growing up, sort of drew from. And it does have a very unique sound. So I really just played for myself. I've never had particular interest in playing in an orchestra. And I meant what I said earlier. Like it had never occurred to me to be in a band until I was in a band. Like I wouldn't even have known like, like that was just like such an alien concept to me that it really never crossed my mind. So, yeah, maybe that's a pity, but hey, I landed in a good place, so I'm not sad.
All right. You mentioned that most people go from piano to playing harp. Are the strings on a harp laid out like a piano, like the C, D, E, F, G? Or?
Sort of. It's sort of like one string per note. So you don't have the black keys. Think of it that way.
Okay.
And the way that you would get sort of those black keys or your sharps and flats is through the levers if you're playing a folk harp, or the pedals if you're playing a concert harp. But yeah, the way you think about it, I think, is similar to piano. Or like I'm a rotten pianist, but I can like pick things out on piano because I know how to play harp.
Okay.
So they do translate to some level.
And like there's like colored strings, right? That's
yes.
like octaves.
Yes.
Which are great for the sun.
Oh my gosh. They do sometimes cause problems. So all of my C strings are red and all of my F strings are blue, which normally is great because it makes a lot of sense to have it laid out like that. Because if you think about it, like when you have 36 is my number of strings I have, but like 36 translucent strings and they're all the same color, like it becomes very difficult to know what note you're playing, or like your chances of messing up are much higher. But I have been in venues where they've had like red or blue light, or like purple light. Oh, that's the worst. And it just shines through my harp strings and like they basically become invisible. And I'm like, oh dear, well, this will be an interesting show.
So you never want to play in like a glow in the dark mini golf.
You
just have to count the strings.
Count the strings.
Count the strings. Yeah.
No, I'd probably have to like put some other marker on it. Or you know what I have seen some harpists do is actually like put a thread of lights down the baseboard of their harp, which could help because it would just give me like my own source of light to sort of cue off of. But
okay.
It's a very technical answer. I'm sure like the 3 harpists who are listening to this and like considering gigging and considering lighting are like, that's good to know.
I wonder if you could have like sort of fiber optic strings.
Exactly.
Or like
LED.
shiny.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
That'd be awesome, actually.
I've seen something like that. I'd have to YouTube that. It's definitely not common, but
you heard it here first. We have patent pending. All right. So Darren, and you play the guitar and piano. How did you get into playing?
So I started playing piano. My parents put me in classical piano when I was 5, and I played until I was 14. And then when I was 14, they kind of gave me the option, to either keep playing piano or not. I chose not to because I was like, this sucks. I hate playing. I hate recitals. I hate practicing. And then a few years later, my senior year of high school, I decided to actually start playing piano again and take lessons. And then my first year of college, actually, I was a piano major before I switched majors. And so I played piano, I think up until my mid to late 20s, and then I stopped. I played in a previous band, and I didn't sing at that point. I was just playing piano, and I was just kind of done. And so I stopped playing piano, and a good friend of mine showed me like literally 4 chords on guitar. And from that point forward, I never took a guitar lesson, but I just started teaching myself guitar based upon what I heard. Because piano, taking piano lessons and classical piano, like, you're so tuned into what should come next for chord progressions and for keys and for, it's so structured and so linear that I had a hard time songwriting on piano, but guitar kind of broke me out of that because it allowed me to actually play and songwrite based upon what I heard. Even if I was playing like a kind of a standard progression, I didn't know what I was playing, and I still don't now. Like I still have no idea when I'm playing a song. my bandmates, oh, what key is that in? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. So for me, guitar was, kind of very liberating instrument to break free from piano. And so it wasn't literally until, about 2 or 3 years ago that we started bringing piano back into the mix. So the piano song that we have on Through the Night was the first piano song that I had written in, I don't know, in like probably 12, 13, 14 years. And then on our new album that's coming out, I think there's seven piano songs. Yeah. So it's actually more piano songs than guitar songs. So it's really cool.
Hybrid. One has piano and guitar.
No, it's true. So it's kind of cool because like I feel like for me, piano has kind of come back into my life in a way that I finally feel more liberated, and I'm able to break out of that traditional classical training and structure and actually songwrite in a way that I couldn't before. And so I think that's really evident in these new songs that we have coming out soon in terms of piano. So now I would say it's pretty equal in some ways between piano and guitar in terms of what we play, or what I play.
All right. And obviously you both sing as well, and we've got some incredible harmonization that goes on there. Did you have like vocal training before the band, or?
I did not. Nope.
Yeah, I had some classical training. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sang a lot. Both of us sang in a number of choirs.
We sing in choirs.
Yeah, I think singing, but like I had more of a classical like training bent, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think one thing we realized is that, I mean, from the very beginning and even now, is that our voices blend, just our vocal tone and everything about it blends super well together. So, which is just luck. Yeah.
All right. Well, so you both said you grew up in some pretty different places around the world, which I'm sure had some a formative role in your lives. How do you think that influenced the genre of music that you play today?
Good question. Do you want to start?
I was going to punt it to you.
Okay. So I grew up listening to mainly classical music. That's the majority of what was played. And then I listened to the Beatles nonstop in high school. And then U2. And then I kind of listened for probably a long time after that, like to female singer-songwriters. So, music was a big part of my life in my childhood, but there wasn't a lot of listening. So I feel like, my musical influence has come through, classical training, but then just like listening to artists, I would say in a similar genre to what we write now, for the last 20 years.
Yeah. I don't know that I would say like place was as much of the factor for me. I had I guess it was a little bit in the sense that I wasn't exposed to a lot of the same musical influences that I think my compatriots here were. So I remember growing up in high school when kazaa was a thing. Sorry, I feel like I'm like pleading the fifth here, self-incrimination. But I would get a lot of music off of kazaa, and I would this is just showing like I was a really nerdy kid apparently, because I would like find words that I liked or phrases that I liked, and I would like plug those into kazaa, and I would just like see what came up. So I was listening to like Celtic stuff, like some things that were like on more mainstream. I was listening to like Finnish metal bands and like, oh man, like one Swedish group with like Swedish metal group with an opera singer. Like I just was listening to a lot of really different things. And I think that was good because I do think that musically, at least my influences were also kind of like a little all over the board. But I also think it's funny because I feel like I listen pretty broadly now, but I'm still like discovering musicians that everybody else kind of grew up with and like names that I knew. But like I heard my first I really listened to Pink Floyd for the first time like a year ago, and I was like, oh, some of this is really good. I like remember being like, have you heard of this artist Pink Floyd? And people are like, are you kidding me? And like, yeah, like classic rock, same thing. Or I discover a lot of like older musicians now, but I think that's actually kind of interesting too, because I really like that almost like historical lens on things, and I really like going back in time and sort of seeing who influenced who. And
yeah. Well, and like I would say on that note too, I think both of us how we grew up and where we grew up, actually, we were both quite sheltered from mainstream pop culture. So I think both of us, from our childhoods and even till now, like we didn't have a lot of influence from, like the top 40 radio station, which I think has an influence of some sort.
Speak for yourself. I really liked Spice Girls and Shakira.
Well, I'm not saying we don't like top 40, but like that was a minimal influence.
Just odd influences.
You know that. We talked about it.
All right. So is music a full-time job for each of you, or do you have day jobs as well?
Yeah, we both bring in 6-figure incomes from music right now. Just kidding. No, it's a part-time profession.
Yes.
Yeah, we both have full-time day jobs.
And how do you feel about the current balance between your day jobs and the band? Is it like being a full-time band something you'd aspire towards?
I think it's interesting because I think both Darren and I would love to be devoting more time to music, and I think will as things heat up. But the thing about both of our jobs is, so to give a little bit of background and disclosure on this front, so Darren does small business consulting on the side, or I guess not on the side, but like that is his other job. And I was a strategy consultant for about 5 years, and I'm actually going back to grad school for a year in just a few short months, which will be kind of cool. But one thing that I think is very important to both of us in our lives is being able to sort of have that balance, ebb and flow between the amount of time that we're putting towards music and just the time that we're able to devote towards other interests. And something that I know we've both talked about has been that, like, I think that there's this dream that a lot of people have, or this sort of vision of, like, to make it, to like really excel at music or at anything creative, you have to like only do that. And I don't think that that's true at all. And actually, I think quite the opposite, that I see many of my friends who are full-time musicians kind of really struggling, not just in the cliche kind of financial ways, but like struggling to find that kind of creative freedom and that creative sort of deep well, I guess, that you get from being able to do a lot of different things as well. I think that there's a lot of pressure on your creativity when you're doing that for your full income as well, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm definitely not knocking that, but I think both Darren and I have found that our music is better, and our like ability to be musicians is better as a result of doing other things. Mm-hmm, the challenge is less about like how do you do this full time, and more about like how do you gain enough control over like how much time you're putting into music that you can sort of dial that way down, like the time you're putting into other things like way down when the music is sort of has momentum and is taking on a life of its own, and then dial those things up again when you need to switch gears, or when there's an ebb.
Right. And it's also like it's a forced mental break. You have to take a break.
And it's also a very creative, like inspiring break, I guess, too, because I mean, I think both of us are very thankful like that our day jobs have given us so much freedom and support for, doing this like on the side, and pursuing this. But I feel like it also kind of feeds a different part of ourselves by being entrepreneurs and really like looking at the full spectrum of what it actually means to be a musician, and the kind of crazy array of business side skills or business skills that you need to actually really move forward as a musician are hugely inspiring and just exciting. I think both of us really have a lot of fulfillment, from that side of things, not just the songwriting and the performing, but the business side of it too.
Yeah, Darren and I both like genuinely love running the business of our music. I don't know that we're like great at it on all levels, and like sometimes like we definitely learn with every iteration of our music, and I think we've definitely also learned when it's good to like get help from others. But like the overall management and stuff, I think both Darren and I really love that.
Yeah.
And speaking of business, Darren, you also have a side company, right? Drift Music. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. So I started about 2.5 years ago. Basically, I started it because I, was looking around as a musician and seeing how few places there were for musicians, especially in our genre, but just in general, for musicians to play to a listening audience and get paid for it. and not have to do a ton of promotion, but they can come up, they play a show, they walk up to the venue, and there's an audience waiting for them. They play like a 45-minute set, often unplugged, and the audience is like completely quiet and listening to them. So it's very different than a lot of other venues out there. It's something that I've heard a lot of feedback from musicians, say that this is like the best show I've ever played, or like one of the best shows I've ever played because of these different factors. And so that's why I started Drift Music. Right now, of course, because of the current situation, it's on a bit of a hiatus, but it will come back for sure. And it's something that I think there's a huge demand for and desire for from the audience perspective out there. People crave a live, intimate environment. A lot of people don't want to go out to the bars and the clubs for any number of reasons, and they really want to have a more personalized experience, and that's kind of the whole core of why I created Drift, for the audience and for the musician.
And the venues themselves are pretty unique, right? Like I went to one of these shows and it was on a steamship.
Exactly. So part of the mission for the tertiary mission for Drift Music is not just the musician's experience and the audience experience, it's also for the venue experience. So they're often almost entirely actually in historic venues. And that's also something that benefits the venues themselves. So the steamship and the historic mansion, both here, like in Vancouver and some other cities that I've been kind of in conversation with, these concerts actually benefit the venue, these historic venues as well. So it's kind of a threefold, benefit, to these different entities. So
Darren has a MBA in social enterprise, so yeah, you can tell.
It helps.
All right. And if a band wanted to apply to put on one of these shows, how should they get in contact with you?
Basically, if they go to Driftin, DRYFT, drift.in, and they go to the kind of get involved page, and there's a submission guidelines on the bottom of the page.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about songwriting. Can you tell us a little bit about your songwriting process?
Darren and I have different answers for this.
We do.
So Darren, go first.
So, it's evolved over time, and it's also I would say not just evolved in terms of like it's gone from one thing to another, but it's expanded in how we do it. But I think the kind of the core of how we started was we would start with some kind of musical or rhythmic pattern on guitar or harp. We would build a melody on top of that with no words, and then we would kind of create a song structure, and then lyrics would follow at the very end of that. And oftentimes, we would have no idea what the song would even be about until we actually wrote the lyrics that kind of fit the kind of feeling of the song. But
yeah, I would say so. In terms of songwriting, I think it's probably worth saying that so Darren and I co-write almost all of our songs. It's quite rare that we have a song that one of us just kind of brings in, and usually at that point, the other person has a fair amount of input as well. So we're pretty serious co-writers on that front, but I do think our processes are a little bit different. So I know Darren almost always starts with instrumentation and then builds the song on top of that. And I'm a little bit more lyric driven. I'm definitely informed by the instrumentation as well, and sort of by melodic patterns that we're starting to pick out. But I feel like I'm constantly I have a phone full of lyrical snippets, lyric snippets and voice memos of me walking down the street looking like a crazy person, singing into my phone, something that's half thought out. So yeah, I would say we have different processes, and I think each song honestly has a bit of a different process too. So.
No, definitely so. And I would say to kind of add on to that too, I would say the majority of our songs have come from us leaving the city and going away to some beautiful place on the water or in the middle of nowhere, and having that be the inspiration. That's been a key, I think, part of a lot of our songs. Not every song, but a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for creative space.
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned water. There seems to be a lot of recurring themes in a lot of your songs, like water, Greek mythology.
Just a little bit.
Look at the album covers here.
What can you tell us about that?
It's interesting. I mean, there's potentially lots of explanations why, but I mean, I think we live in a very lush place both in terms of the water around us and the water that falls and just the environments. And we live in a coastal temperate rainforest, and I do think that has influenced a lot of the music that we write. Not just the places we go to, but just it's almost like the environments and the ecosystem and the climate, like actually in some way, help us formulate and helps drives these songs and the lyrics and the feeling to them, especially. More so the feeling, not always the lyrics.
I'm going to chime in with just a quote that will be my only comment on that, which is that the cure for all things is salt water, sweat, tears, or the sea.
Yeah.
All right.
Robbie's like, don't know how to do it.
Damn, stumped.
Who did we bring in here? Please leave.
I will say there's also literary inspiration too.
Yes.
That has been another key factor if we're to look at all the main factors driving our music. The
Darren and I both read a lot.
Literary and mythological factors have driven a number of songs. Yeah.
Didn't one of the songs on your new album came from like opening up a book or something?
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
Roses. So actually, so this is good credit where credit is due. Our song "The Roses" actually is what fed into the title for the new album, which is "What I Was and More," which is a line from. There's a spoken word section at the beginning and the end of the song, and the title is a line from that poem. The poem was written by Anna St. Vincent Millay, and the moment that Robbie is referring to is as we were sort of getting ready to finish this album, we were just like essentially trying to tighten up what we thought would be our last few songs. We went on a songwriting retreat, and we were just kind of noodling around, and Darren was playing something on the keyboard on its like Rhodes setting, and it was this kind of really cool
electric
like
piano.
kind of ethereal, kind of like.
And it was something that actually came from something that was in my mind. I was whistling.
Yeah.
I often like to whistle something like, right? And so I whistle something, and I had this melody in my head, and I put it on keyboards in this electric piano setting.
Yeah, and it just sounded, for some reason, so it actually reminded me of Lana Del Rey's spoken word section of Burnt Norton, which is one of my favorite poems. So I love that take on it. But I had been thinking about that, and like what Darren was playing on the keyboard just kind of sounded like that to me. And I this Airbnb that we were staying in was crazy. These people were such poetry fanatics. Like they had such a good collection of like older poets, like contemporary poets, just classic, like everything. It was great. But I had a book of Anna St. Vincent Millay's sonnets on my lap, that I'd been reading when Darren started playing that, and I was just like, wait a second, like this sounds like the rhythm of this is a sonnet. So I just like pretty much opened the book to a poem because Darren was playing and I wanted to catch it, and just like read this poem, and that is the poem that is now in the song. So yes.
And sorry, what was the title of the poem?
I haven't been able to find it, which is weird. We've talked to the Anna St. Vincent Millay Society. Like, I don't know that it actually has a title, but because a lot of sonnets either have a number, but like for this or a title, but this one, the number has varied based on the books it's been published in, which gets a little tricky. But it starts out with "Say what you will" and "Scratch my heart to find."
And ends in the first part of it, at least, and "What I was and more."
I tell you, I am what I was and more. Dramatic pause.
Foreshadowing.
All right. I want to talk about covers now. On your first studio album, there is a cover of Damien Rice, 9 Crimes, which is a very good rendition, by the way. I like that.
Thank you.
Tell us about that. How did that come to be?
Darren and I don't play a lot of covers, actually. We know very few covers, partially because, as Darren was referencing earlier, we have like kind of eclectic musical backgrounds, and oftentimes, like Darren and I have a sort of body of songs that we both really know and love, but like beyond that, like there is no guarantee that I know the same song that Darren knows and vice versa. So it makes it a little hard sometimes when people are just like, play the whatever song.
Yeah, but we also like don't intentionally practice cover songs. Like once in a while, we'll pick up a song and like, oh, you know, like we'll try this, and it's like, oh, that sounds kind of cool.
I like doing covers more than Darren does, but
it can be fun. It can be fun, but we just haven't like locked many in except for two. We have two cover songs that we know how to play.
Yeah. And I think Damien Rice is definitely a big musical influence for both of us. And that was kind of the first cover we, maybe not.
I think If You Want Me was actually by the Swell Season. Yeah.
But yeah, so it was just a song that kind of stuck with us, and we started playing out for a show, I think early on. And it's become we kind of made it our own in ways that I really like. And it's become kind of a standing favorite. So.
I must confess I had never heard of Damien Rice before you guys, but
you're welcome.
I am now a fan. Yes, thank you. So is there a song that you would like to cover in the future, or?
There's a lot actually. Like Beth has a list of probably like dozens of songs actually that she wants to cover.
Not wrong.
And we have done a couple. We actually did a cover of the Civil Wars. We actually did a cover of Semel, Fear of the Water. So there have been a couple that we've done and have actually performed, I think just maybe once or twice. But yeah, there's a big list.
Yeah, I think we go back and forth in terms of our theory or like philosophy on covers, in terms of covering artists that already write in similar veins to Darren and me. And then like, I really love the idea of like covering songs that are completely like different genres.
Like a hip hop song or
like
pop song or
I think like that idea is definitely alive and well. I think it's just finding the right song.
So will there be a rap cover on the new album?
Well, there might be a rap,
but there
remix.
might be a rap at some point. Stop spoiling things, Robbie.
Scott just rap.
No. There may be a rap version of one of these songs coming. I won't tell you which one.
All right, I look forward to that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about touring. I believe you guys have done some touring around the world. What are the places you've been to?
Our first European tour outside of this country, or any tour outside of this country actually, was to France, Switzerland, and Italy. And then we went back a year later and we went to Scandinavia. So we toured in Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. And we were planning on touring there again in a couple months, but things have changed.
Yes. So. Touring is a great question right now. Obviously, COVID has put a damper in many people's plans. But yeah, we're definitely, I think Darren and I both really enjoy touring, and like, I think we both definitely want to tour more broadly in different countries. But speaking for myself, and I think for you as well, I'm also really excited to, like, we've toured a lot down the West Coast and on the Eastern Seaboard, and I'm really excited to just like see other parts of the country from a touring perspective. I'd love to tour in like the Midwest, in the Rockies. I'd love to go to like, we haven't spent any time in the South. We've never toured in the South. Like, and these are just like, I don't know. I think a lot about like the parts of our own country that we are not as familiar with. And like, I would love to get down there.
Yeah. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you, what's one place that you haven't toured that you would like to? It sounds like your own country.
Well,
my own country, exactly.
We've also talked about Australia, New Zealand, doing a tour in those two countries. That was a possibility. Still is a possibility. I think we're just going to have to, kind of wait a little bit until things change. And we've talked about some other regions of the world as well.
Yeah.
I think New Zealand right now is like COVID free. So
yeah, but we're not.
But we're not.
Yeah, you can't get
They're
there.
like, no, please don't come.
They may be a great place to tour right now, but will they let us come?
Nope.
Probably not.
Probably not. No.
All right. All right. So I want to get to the new album. But before we do, and this is especially for the listeners out there that might be discovering you for the first time today, why don't you walk us through your discography this far? You released an EP in 2015.
We did.
And your first studio album in 2017.
I can take it.
Tell us a little bit about these.
So the first one here, I can't tell which direction that would be. I guess
It's the Water's Edge.
left. No, left, right. But it's my right, your left, from the screen. This was our first recording ever together as a band and as a duo. And some songs we both wrote together and some earlier songs that I brought to the album. And it was I would say just a really fun exploratory experience. And I think that we were both really proud, of that EP when it came out. And that was kind of our starting point, for March to May in a sense. And then a couple of years later, we came out with Through the Night, our first full-length album. And it was just a wonderful evolution, I think, of the first EP that we had.
Yeah, I think that it's been interesting tackling each of these recording projects. So Water's Edge, Through the Night, and now What I Was and More. I definitely hear that sort of sonic evolution from one project to the next. Some of that is time, some of that is experience, in the sense that like Darren and I really weren't very experienced as like band-oriented musicians when we started March to May, and so it's just been this massive learning process, and we've evolved quite a lot with each project. But I also think that they're interesting kind of snapshots of different places, like where we're at in our lives. And I think that's part of the beauty of like being able to do this for as long as we have, and hopefully as long as we will. Because I think that our style does sort of change, but it mostly deepens. Like I think we get better at the things that we're good at, and more, I think, like wide ranging, in the sense of being able to take those parts that are kind of the core of our sound and really cast a wide net to sort of encompass different parts of what that might mean. That was a very vague answer, but listen to the new album. It's great.
Okay. Would you say, it sounds like the EP was an amalgamation of different things, but was there like an overall theme for Through the Night?
Yeah. I would definitely say, I mean, I think you have a better, you're better describing like the actual themes of these albums, but I think there's a pretty consistent theme to it. Yeah.
So I think the title is actually nod to that for all of them. So the Water's Edge, was kind of like that first step out, like you're sort of standing at the edge of something, and I think the songs on that kind of reflect that there was a sense of learning, and a sense of sort of like putting our first foot out there. Yeah. Through the Night came out in a time that was, I think, very professionally and personally challenging for Darren and me. Just we were changing a lot and growing and like going through a lot. And Through the Night had this sort of feeling of like, I mean, coming through the night sort of to dawn, but also this sort of coming together feeling. And a lot of the songs in it, I think, are very, very well crafted and very just like pretty. They're very good at their core, and I like that. They're very clean. And this sort of sense of unity and harmony.
Yeah. No, sorry. Like I was like looking at all the titles, like as you were saying that too. And I feel like in addition to that like there's like this kind of like almost like a darkness to it as well, for sure. Which, I mean, again, the title Through the Night of the album, I think kind of captures some of that, but there's like this kind of,
I wouldn't say darkness. I'd say there's a somber quality to some of them.
I would say that's somewhat synonymous, darkness and somber. But yeah, I mean, we're using different words, but I would say that like when I say darkness, I mean, like, yeah, somber, melancholic, like there's something kind of heavier, darker, minor key, like that kind of feeling to it for most of the songs on there, actually. Yeah.
What I Was and More, so this new album, I think, takes that a little bit further too. Like this new album, like there's a little bit more confidence in it. I think we're coming into our own skin a little bit more. And that has given us the freedom to write and perform in ways that I think, like, we weren't very risky in Through the Night. And I think that I wouldn't say that we're like extremely risky in What I Was and More, but we're definitely sort of taking a stand with a little bit more confidence. We're moving in our own skin a little bit more, more securely, and taking more risks with that. But it's also, so I've thought about What I Was and More as sort of encompassing a lot of like creative destruction. It's sort of, if Through the Night was sort of bringing everything together, What I Was and More is kind of like pulling it apart and looking at the different pieces and sort of assessing that from I guess a little bit more of a place of strength. So I would actually say like I think What I Was and More has some darkness in it.
Oh, it does. It does for sure.
Through the Night, it's more. I feel like it's more like it's a softer darkness.
Somber and melancholic, I guess maybe through the night. No, I agree. I mean, I feel like What I Was and More definitely has a darkness to it, but it also has a lightness to it. One of the things we did when we were actually going through our song list and not just deciding which songs were going to be on it, but also trying to put words to every single song. Like the feeling that kind of came from it. Not only was there kind of like, maybe darkness and anger and sadness, but there was also like, triumphant and joyful and, some of these kinds of characteristics. So it has, I think, much more of a kind of combination like between those two, kind of different sides of the emotional spectrum comparatively. Yeah.
Would you say the majority of your songs are in a minor key?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I look down through,
we have a couple of like more major, more like happier songs. It's funny. We say this a lot in our live shows as kind of a joke. But we have a song that we may or may not be playing later. But that when we first wrote it was called a Happy Love Song because it was the only one of its kind. Like there was nothing to confuse it with. So yeah, I think
3 songs out of 17.
Yeah, we definitely have a more melancholic tendency. So take that for what it is.
But melancholic doesn't have to also mean depressing or like I think people have different associations with melancholic, but melancholic can also be very inspiring and beautiful and kind of introspective, and I think that's what a lot of our music feels like too. It's not just it can be uplifting in a different kind of way, right? So I think that's one thing. Looking at the minor versus major, yes, we have a lot of the majority are minor in the minor key. But I think a lot of these songs have, this kind of more somber, melancholic, introspective feel to it, but they're also very uplifting and inspiring, like in terms of what people, when they're listening to them, actually walk away with. So,
okay. And what would you say has been the hardest song to record this far? And that could be technically or emotionally.
That's a good question, Robbie.
The Way We Love.
That was hard technically. I think it was surprising. We thought, oh, that song's going to be easy. But
that's from the new album.
Yeah, it's the last song in the new album, and it's got kind of a syncopation in it, particularly in the piano that carries through the entire song and was actually extremely, extremely difficult to get right in the studio.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
that was challenging.
I mean, I think there's some other songs that like, that we definitely felt, that were more technically challenging, from like a perspective of, what we were playing in the notes and stuff. But The Way We Love was so simplistic in terms of playing it, like in terms of like the notes and the key progression and the chord progressions. But it was really hard to get the right feel and to play it like in the right way.
I think that is a truism that like I think sometimes the simpler a song seems, the more deceptive it is to record because you don't have sort of a lot else going on that can kind of like buoy things.
Yeah. I mean, there were other songs that were more vocally challenging and, maybe instrumentally challenging, but yeah, that was one of the hardest.
Okay. Now, in the AV world, there's a saying that there's no such thing as finished projects, only abandoned ones. If there's one song that you feel like you wish you could go back and change something about it, what would that be?
Georgia.
Yeah.
I'd speed up Georgia.
I think we speed up. I think we would love to record it with our current band.
Yeah.
Granted, Dave, our drummer, did play on that song and he played wonderfully. But I think the recording and the mastering and the mixing, the mastering, I think we'd love to do that again.
Yeah.
Doesn't Georgia? It has the tempo changes, right?
It does. So the funny thing was that we've done this one other time that I'm remembering right now. Occasionally, like it does make sense to like have a moment in the song that you sort of tweak the tempo, but for Georgia, like I think it was, so this is where I come and say, I'm like, oh my gosh, we've learned so much and we've grown so much. I think it was sort of like inexperience and indecision. We couldn't really like the right tempo felt too fast in studio, and so we actually ended up starting at a slow tempo, and then there's this part at the end where we just like kept speeding up like a runaway horse, and so we actually ended up sort of like gradually increasing the speed of the click track, and so like the actual tempo of the song, and in retrospect, looking back now, I'm like, we should have just started it faster. So
All right.
Angst. That's one of our favorite songs, by the way. Like, we love playing that song. And I think that's just more sort of feeling like, did we land the recording? No.
All right. So let's talk about the new album, shall we? What I Was and More is the title, and it's going to be dropping on September 1st, correct? All right. I've had the privilege of hearing some of the songs on this album already, and I go back and forth on which one I think is going to be my favorite. So I'm excited to hear the final finished product. Before we get into my main questions, you guys had the relatively unique experience of having to finish this album during a pandemic. Can you tell us what that was like?
We were so lucky.
Super
oh my
lucky.
gosh. So we funded this partially through a Kickstarter, and like, just to illustrate some of the luck around this, we kickstarted it, and our Kickstarter ended like right as everything was shutting down, and we'd already met our goal. So like, as
A couple weeks before, actually.
yeah, but so we had met our goal early, which was really lucky, because as everything was shutting down, it just felt really like inappropriate, frankly, to be like, fund our album when people were like, fund my livelihood. Like, my life just got canceled.
Yeah.
So we were extremely lucky on that front, that we sort of got everything done, or so met our funding goal, like, just like, literally, I'm not kidding, like days before everything exploded.
Our end date for the Kickstarter was the first day of spring. So.
Which was like the first day of lockdown as well. So,
Yeah.
And then our studio shut down for COVID as well. Our fantastic engineer, Don Farwell, closed Earwig Studios, and I was the last one in the studio before he shut it down. So like, again, like finishing the tracking for the album. So that was, again, like skin of our teeth. And we kind of knew it was coming. Like, we were hearing more, like we thought the shutdown was going to be more of a reality, or like we could read the signs on the walls. So we'd actually sort of started setting up the final days of recording to sort of knock off people. So like, the fewest number of people needed to be doing anything to be able to finish it.
Yeah.
But yes.
But we actually recorded like our first 3 songs with bass and drums and the 2 of us in late August. And then just because of a number of factors, we actually had to wait. And so we didn't go back in the studio until January. And then we're in there in February again. And then February, was when we first started hearing about the coronavirus. And then our last days were in March, as Beth was saying, to kind of try to squeeze that in before this all happened. So so pretty much everything was laid down. All the tracks were laid down. And then we just had to, worry about mixing and mastering, which was done remotely. So
I'm glad the timing worked out for you there.
Very lucky. Yeah.
So you obviously haven't been able to put on live shows during this time as well. Have you hopped on the Zoom train?
Well, not Zoom, but Facebook Live. We have done, I think, 5, 6, 7 shows now, something like that. We've done like 5 ourselves, just for March to May. And we've done a couple of fundraisers for a dance studio that's, just currently struggling too with, trying to stay funded and stay alive. So, and then I guess we did one Facebook Live kind of concert, and it wasn't Facebook Live, it was actually for Facebook employees, but it was live streamed to their employees as well. So everything remote though.
Is it weird not having like an audience in front of you to hear?
So weird.
It's weird. So occasionally, like my housemate or my girlfriend are there, and they're like clapping, like in the background. So it's like a little bit of an effect, but yeah, it's strange.
Yeah, I think I'm getting used to it, but there's still definitely an odd feeling in sort of the process of talking to an audience and sort of connecting, like storytelling to an audience, and sort of performing, I guess, more than playing, when you can't see who's on the other side of that. Yeah. Like I'm thinking back to our first live stream where we kept just because we were used to doing it for stage shows, or for real live shows, we would ask questions of the audience. We're like, oh, like, how's everybody doing out there? And then be like,
well, yeah,
we can't hear you.
Well, and we also didn't have it set up. I know you can do this. We're not the most tech savvy, I will say. You can have it set up, so if we have like an iPad, sitting here and, kind of following the live concert as we're playing and seeing people's comments and questions, we could do that. We just haven't done that.
I think we could. I mean, we could. I actually will, I think, speaking for myself, but I think also speaking for us, I think we will continue to not do that, partially because I think that there's something about a live show of being really in it that I respect and I kind of want to keep. And I think if I were trying to like
Answer
watch
the
what people were
questions.
saying or
Yeah.
answer questions or like pause and like catch up on comments in the live show, I think we would be cheapening the experience of it.
Yeah.
So
it would distract for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
So we'll go back and we answer everybody's questions, and it makes
Afterwards
such
we do. Yeah.
like big.
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes me so happy when I see what people say and what people write and stuff. But yeah, we'll get to those after the show, and we will respond.
All right. Let's talk about the new album, shall we? As I understand it from the album title, this album is like one of transformation. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So transformation and again, creative destruction has been a big theme for this album. I think that personally and musically, I think we have, like Darren and I have just been growing so much in the last year and have had some, like, we've been changing and evolving as people. And I think that there has been this sense of like finding structures and finding ways of being that like no longer served us, and getting to that point that like individually and together, where you kind of have to burn everything down, because it's like the very structures that you sort of built to support your own growth are the things that are actually limiting you at that point, or like at now that are kind of holding you back. So you have to be able to like be like, yes, I needed those then, and I don't anymore. So there has been there has definitely been sort of this sense of sort of transformation. I think that there's also something I think comes out a little bit on this album, is I think getting comfortable with like speaking more personally to, or writing more personally towards emotions that we're not usually as comfortable sitting with. Like for me, sometimes anger, like letting that find a space to like constructively and productively kind of come out in a song. I think grief is one that came out.
Or sadness. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And not just like, I don't know. It like we have our share of sad songs, but
also joy. I mean, if you look at the album too, I mean, like Sea Creature, right? Mm-hmm. Like it definitely has that feeling to it.
Yeah.
But I think maybe to kind of elaborate on what Beth is saying too, I feel like it's kind of taking in some ways what Through the Night, started with, in terms of being a little more vulnerable and intimate, like in our songwriting and what we're sharing, to the next level. Because I feel like in some ways, like as Beth said earlier too, Through the Night was almost more controlled. It was like, still like, all right, we're just going to perform and, do this. And I mean, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful album. We love it. But I feel like what it was and more like kind of takes both of us to the next level of being more open, vulnerable, and kind of intimate with the listener. And I think that's kind of I think a wonderful evolution of the songwriting, if you look at these three albums.
Okay. And genre-wise, should we expect it to sound like your previous stuff, or have you pulled a Taylor Swift? Is there like a synth pop song in there?
Oh my gosh.
And hip-hop, yeah.
Totally. No. With all due respect to Taylor Swift, I think I love those albums and I love her evolution there. No, I think that I think we're definitely experimenting more. We're definitely exploring more and taking more risks with our sound, which I'm really happy about. And I think we have no intention of stopping, but it's still very, very much a March to May album. Like you will hear differences and sort of, you will probably hear that exploration, but I don't think longtime listeners will be like, what just happened here?
No. And I think it's actually kind of interesting from like a sonic side of things too. I feel like, on Through the Night, introducing the first piano song, If I Told You I Could Stay, was almost like an introduction to, this album to an extent as well. Because I mean, sonically, when you introduce, another instrument as a primary instrument, when people are used to listening to guitar, right, in the past, it is a transformation, it's a shift. And I think it very much, still represents our sound, but it's very much also a shift sonically than what Through the Night is to an extent. I mean, there's still the strings and there's still the the wonderful bass and the drums and and this other instrumentation besides harp, guitar, piano, and vocals. But I do feel it has kind of a sonic difference in that respect.
Okay. And the song Hylas is going to be the first single from the album, and that's being released July 10th, right?
Yeah.
That is
Want
true.
to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. It's a piano song.
Yeah, Hylas is a fun song. Hylas was written in the space of an afternoon, and it just kind of came. It's funny because when we write, a lot of times, particularly when we're writing like melodic chunks, we'll be just sort of singing nonsense over instrumentation, and then like so the like extremely early recordings I have of some of our songs, like it literally is just nonsense. But for this one, like some of the first passes we did of the song, as we were just conceiving it, just figuring out what the bare bones of the song were, like I can go back and I'm like singing some of the final lyrics. Like that song just wrote itself in some ways.
But on an interesting note though too, we started writing it on guitar. So when you listen to the song, on July 10th and you hear how it sounds, the song I think took a radical shift to piano, which I think like actually makes it sound so much more powerful.
Yeah. So Hylas is a bit of a satire as a song. It's kind of satiring the type of, I think the type of person and the attitude of like saying all the right things or like making a lot of promises that you have that just sound good and that you have no intention of keeping, because you don't actually want to like, I guess, do the work, and then like not showing up and not fulfilling those promises. So it's a little bit of a sense of like, oh, I'll ask you to take a trust fall and then I'll drop you. And the name comes from the Greek myth of Hylas and the nymphs, and Hylas who went to get water one night, and
there's the Greek mythology and water again.
Yes, it is
exactly.
And the water nymphs fell in love with him and drowned him, basically. Just carried him down with them, and he died. And it was also somewhat inspired by, so there was, when we were starting to write this, I was very excited about an exhibit at the Seattle Art Museum on Victorian radicals and sort of pre-Raphaelite art. And so I was thinking a lot about that sort of artistic movement and John Waterhouse's painting of Hylas and the Nymphs as well. So that's kind of a flag for this song as well.
Was it there? Did you get to see it?
No, it wasn't there. It's in England. So.
All right. And for this song, there's going to be a music video, right?
Can
you tell us about that?
Well, there's water in it. Of course. We got to.
I would like to mention that this is the second time that Darren has almost drowned in a music video.
This is true.
We're gonna have to do some sort of spoof at some point of like Darren back from the dead.
Yeah. So we filmed it at these, well, I guess 3 locations, but the first location we went to film was on Whidbey Island, and just an absolutely stunning place on the edge of like not the abyss, but like it's like looking out over like the Olympics and the Strait of Juan de Fuca and Vancouver Island, and it's just this phenomenal place, that's completely alone, surrounded by nothing, and that's where we filmed the first part of it, and then Beth found this amazing place on Pure Space down in West Seattle, Buren area, West Seattle, I guess, that is just absolutely stunning in terms of the interior and what this person did to kind of create this very unique and beautiful space. Tiny, it's like a tiny house, but it's just beautiful. And then of course, like the third space actually is the place we have. Well, it's actually where we wrote the song. So we used the piano of the people that own this beautiful house that's right on the water as part of the backdrop as well.
But yeah, Hylas, our angry baby.
Yeah.
And will the video be coming out the same day as the track, or later on?
A few days before.
Okay.
So the video will actually, so I don't know am I allowed to say the date, today's date?
It depends when this is premiering, when we're broadcasting this, I guess.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So this is July 3rd that we are recording this, and the music video comes out on July 7th, and the single comes out on July 10th. So you'll already have seen it, most likely, by this time.
And if this comes out after that, apologies on my end.
All good.
Nah.
All good.
All right. So I guess my last question about the album is, how many tracks can we expect?
12.
We have 12, yeah. So our EP has 6, Through the Night has 11, and this is 12. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we actually had to leave some songs off because we actually wanted to record more, and it's hard to narrow it down to these 12. So
Will those be showing up on the next album, or?
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
I mean, building an album it's not just about like the number of songs that you have written. Like there is some sort of like
It's cohesion and like the
you're kind of, I don't know if you're
portfolio.
telling a story as directly as that, but you're kind of capturing a feeling or a moment. And
Yeah, there has to be like a common thread, I think, through the album,
Yeah.
and I think both of these previous ones have that. It's a thread that ties every song together. Even in some ways, might seem, hard to relate to or more foreign or more distant. There's still a thread that ties them all.
I guess, yeah, that makes sense. I guess what I was asking is, will we hear them at some point? Like,
Maybe.
Will there be
Oh.
another EP?
Maybe
perhaps?
it's so funny because there are some songs that we have talked about doing an EP, and they're songs that we love and that we have played. We played in tons of shows, but we've never recorded, and they still don't yet seem to fit in any album that we've done so far.
yeah,
So
I'd say come to a show, catch live versions of the songs on YouTube.
yeah.
All right. So I know you guys brought a few songs today that you'd like to perform for us. Before we get to that, though, I feel like a lot of these artist interviews focus solely on the band and stuff, but I just want to spend some time asking some fun, random questions so people can get to know you guys. All right. So I'm just going to go through a list here. First CD ever purchased?
U2, actually. I can't remember which album, but it was U2.
Tori Amos, Scarlet's Walk.
Okay.
Darren approves.
I love Tori Amos.
Favorite place you've traveled to?
Just one?
You can name multiple.
Oh man, I would
Top
say
three.
Patagonia, New Zealand, and Norway.
Big on fjords there.
I love yours. And water, of course.
I have a soft spot for Patagonia as well. And yeah, I'm going to say Patagonia.
Okay. What is one place you haven't traveled to that you would like to?
Mongolia.
We can only say one.
You can say multiple.
Oh man. everywhere.
Mongolia and Nepal, but Mongolia is top on my list.
Yeah.
Okay.
No fears.
I would love to go to Morocco is high on my list. Australia and New Zealand are high on my list. Malaysia and Vietnam and Cambodia are high on my list.
All good places.
Thanks.
Okay.
My list is very long. It has most of these places are also high on the list.
I'll just say name 10 things that.
There we go. There we go.
Okay. All right. What are 10 hobbies you have?
Oh God.
No. Just one, right?
Yeah, just
Okay. I'd say my biggest hobby is probably hiking. I love hiking. I spend as much as my time as I can outdoors. Yeah.
I like to cook and bake.
Okay. What is your favorite drink?
Man. Well, besides red wine, which is more than just one kind of red wine. I mean, there's lots of red wine out there. I don't know how many varietals, but I'll stop talking about red wine. So I would say my favorite drink is probably some type of cocktail because they're usually more complex and difficult to make. I've been getting into cocktail making during the COVID times, which is kind of fun. So I don't have a favorite cocktail per se. I'm still experimenting, but yeah.
Okay.
Sparkling water and scotch, but not together and not at the same time.
Okay. Favorite food?
Broccoli. No,
Yams.
that's actually
All right.
probably my real answer, but yeah, broccoli and fish.
Yams and
Any
salmon.
type of fish? Or?
I love salmon.
Okay.
Well, yams is
Yeah.
probably one of my favorite foods, and salmon.
Okay. Favorite book?
Ooh, probably The Far Away Nearby by Rebecca Solnit.
Peter S. Beagle's The Last Unicorn.
Ah.
All right. Favorite song?
Ah.
And you can't name your own songs.
I would say probably one of my, it's a toss up between Little Earthquakes and the whole album actually by Tori Amos and Fumbling Towards Ecstasy by Sarah McLachlan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say a sort of fairy tale by Tori Amos.
Okay. Do you have a favorite podcast?
Ooh.
99% Invisible, yes,
That's a
and
good
Song
one.
Exploder.
I actually don't listen to podcasts very often, but I am exposed to to lots of podcasts of wonderful different types and origins by Lisa. So she listens to a bunch, and I don't know the names of them, but they're really good.
Lisa's Darren's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite movie?
No idea. Yeah.
The
The movie once was pretty good, but probably not a favorite.
Oh my gosh, you did this on purpose, didn't you? Robbie knows that I don't watch a ton of movies. Yeah.
No, I don't either. Titanic and the typical tragic love story, I suppose. English Patient.
More water.
Exactly.
I did like The English Patient.
It's good.
This is not a movie that I've seen a number of times, and I don't know why my mind went to this, but I also went to Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Okay.
Inception is really good too. It's another favorite.
Inception. All right. Favorite holiday?
You go first, Beth.
Thanksgiving.
Favorite holiday? Boy, probably Labor Day, just because I love the fall time, and it's one of the only fall holidays that we can actually have a 3-day weekend and to go take off.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is a song or genre of music you don't like?
Heavy metal.
I'm really hit or miss on reggae.
Okay.
Some of it I love, and some of it I really don't.
But you're okay with heavy metal?
I'm okay with some heavy metal. Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Country?
Country has its moments.
Bluegrass?
Bluegrass everything has its moments.
No, everything has its moments. That's a problem. But there's some things that have less moments than others.
Again, like even reggae definitely has its moments. Like I have really, I think I've heard reggae musicians who I think are incredible artists. But it's not something I
gravitate towards.
Often.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your go-to karaoke song?
You too.
Which
Probably,
one?
I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
Okay, I like that song.
It's a good song.
Eva Cassidy's Songbird.
Okay.
And the Spice Girls.
Which one?
Wannabe.
Okay. What is an instrument you'd like to learn to play someday?
Cello.
I'm going to twist that, and I would say I would like to learn digital production.
Okay. What is the last concert you went to?
I was supposed to go to 3 concerts. They're all canceled.
I know. I'm trying, like, which was
The last
which did I go
non-canceled one.
to versus which did I have tickets to?
Which actually still happened.
Wait, can we answer that instead? Can we answer, like, what concerts were you really looking forward to that
do
got
both.
canceled? Okay.
I was looking forward to Simmel, Flora Cash, Emancipator. What was the other one? The one other one. Yeah.
Yeah. Darren and I buy concert tickets together frequently, so some overlap there. But
Yeah.
I think the last concert that I went to that I really enjoyed was Radical Face. And then the concerts that I was really looking forward to that got canceled were similarly Simmel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh Wonder and Emancipator.
I was going to go to that Oh Wonder concert as well.
I know,
Sad about
right?
that.
I
The
know.
worst.
Oh Wonder.
Oh, and Agnes Obel too.
Oh, yeah.
Sulk. Very sad.
Name a pet peeve of yours.
People driving in the left lane slow.
Okay.
Not cool.
But fast is all right.
Fast is fine.
Okay.
Dogs off leash.
What?
Dogs off leash.
Oh, I mean, that is one. Actually, that's true. It's not the one I was thinking of, but that's a good one. Off-leash dogs in explicitly non-off-leash areas. Public service announcement, like, your dog may be you're the most friendly, sweet baby angel, but other people's dogs may not be, and you may be causing control or problems. And if you cannot control your dog, that's on you.
You can tell it's a pet peeve.
Yes.
I do. I like dogs a lot, and I really don't like dog owners sometimes.
Okay. Well, that's a perfect segue into my next question. Darren, what can you tell us about corgis?
So corgis are one of the most phenomenal dog breeds on the planet. They're very majestic, and they're fierce and powerful. And of course, kind of cute and fluffy, like a bunny. So I mean, they're kind of this kind of combination between like a small dog and a big dog, but yet they have
Small dog, big personality.
Yeah, they have the kind of the cuddly, fluffy personality that you just want to scoop up, but yet they're pretty fierce. And I mean, what can top a corgi? Really, is my question.
All right. And Beth, what can you tell us about coffee?
Oh my gosh, coffee is a comfort food.
It's a drink.
What?
It's a drink.
Whatever, comfort beverage. Coffee is wonderful. Coffee can be consumed at all times of day and night, and is always an acceptable smell as well. Coffee candles.
I didn't know those existed. That sounds amazing.
Yes. I mean, there are really bad coffee candles, but the good ones, oof.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. Last 2 questions here. The Oxford comma. Are you for or against it?
I'm for.
Strong for it.
Yeah.
That's a strong 4 from me as well.
We relate. Yay. Share something in common. How about that?
It happens occasionally.
All right. Final question. The dress back in 2015, was it black and blue or white and gold?
The what?
I wasn't sure about this either. He had to send me this meme.
The dress?
There's a picture of a dress, and apparently some people look at it, they see the dress as black and blue, and some other people see it as white and gold.
Ooh, I've never seen it.
You might have to put that like in front of people.
Should we pull it up right now?
You can pull it up, yes. I'm actually very curious to see what you say.
Oh, okay.
I have seen this, and
I've never seen this before, so this is new to me. All right, so it's coming up. The dress, original pic.
All right, so we have a picture of the dress up here.
Blue and gold.
Blue and gold?
Blue and gold.
Yeah, what would you say?
Blue and black.
It's like blue and gold to me.
That's so fascinating.
I see black and blue.
All right, blue and black, black and blue. Yeah.
Oh, no one said blue and gold?
You're unique.
I like being unique. That's good.
You know how I sometimes say we don't always see things eye to eye, or like we just don't see things in the same light.
We don't. It's a sunlight. It's like there's like a gold cast. Even if it's a black in the dress, it's like a gold cast to it. So it's gold and blue. No, I've never seen that before.
But you don't see black.
I can see maybe like a hint of black, but it's not really black. It's like muted. It's like very faded.
So fascinating.
No, it's much more
I can
gold.
see what could be considered gold at like the top.
I can see like gold highlights in
yeah.
it from where the light is coming in, but it is distinctly black and blue.
Oh no, it's distinctly gold and blue.
Fascinating.
Wow.
It's not white and gold. I don't know where people call white and gold. That's weird.
All right.
Okay. Good question. Good question. A question for the ages.
All right. Well, now that our listeners have gotten to know you guys a bit better, what do you say we head into Studio B and let you guys play a few songs for us?
Sounds good.
All right. We're going to take a short break here and get set up, complete a sound check, and then we'll be right back.
All right.
Sounds wonderful.
Yay.
All right. All right. So we're back with March to May in the studio, and sound check is sounding good. What's the first song you're going to be playing for us today?
Well, we told you about a cover, so we're going to play said cover. This is Damien Rice's 9 Crimes.
All right.
Un, deux, trois.
Now, as far as you know, does Damien Rice know you did a cover of this song? Has he ever reached out to you?
Oh,
I wish. No, I don't know.
unless he watches a lot of YouTube.
He could be one of those people who like obsessively Googles himself and like looks at his Spotify covers, which dare to dream, but no, I doubt it. To be thinking It's the wrong time for somebody new. It's a small crime, and I've got no excuse. Is that alright with you? Give my gun away when it's loaded. Is that alright with you? If you don't shoot it, how am I supposed to hold? Is that alright with you? Give my gun away when it's loaded. Is that alright with you? Is that alright?
Leave me out with the waste. This is not what I do. It's a wrong kind of place to be cheating on you. It's a wrong time, just pulling me through. It's a small crime, and I've got no excuse. Is that alright with you? Give my gun away when it's loaded. Is that alright with you? If you don't shoot it, how am I supposed to hold it? Is that alright with you? Give my gun away when it's loaded. Is that alright with you? Is that alright? Is that alright? Yeah. You don't give me down when we're loaded. If you don't shoot it, how am I supposed to hold it? Give my gun away when it's loaded.
Is that alright? Is that alright with you? No. Leave me out with the waste. This is not what I do. It's the wrong kind of place to be thinking of you.
I love that song.
I'm so glad.
Now, in watching this, I had a question. Given that the harp and the guitar are like both string instruments, do they ever clash? Or like, how does that work out?
Not really. So the harp has kind of an interesting sound. We often observe that when we're playing the harp against the piano, it sounds a little bit more like a guitar. When we're playing the harp against the guitar, it sounds a little bit more like a piano. So no, I think I think the resonance of the harp is so different from the guitar that they kind of complement each other more than clashing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Beth, with the angle that we have the harp here, we can see the pedals that you were talking about earlier.
There are no pedals on this harp. You can see the levers.
The levers. You want to tell us like how that works?
Sure. So these are sharpening levers. This is a full set of levers. You sometimes see harps that only have a couple of levers on certain strings. But yeah, I change the key on my harp by flipping one of these levers up or down. So like this is a C. And then this is a C sharp. So that's how I change my keys.
Okay.
I'm actually going to do that right now.
That was fast.
I mean, it's just putting it, like, this is an easy key. Everything's down.
Okay. All right. So what are we going to be hearing next?
Next, we are going to play Persephone. Yeah. Okay. So the first song we played in this song as well are both off of our album that's coming out in the September 1st. That's not Persephone.
That is Persephone. That's the ending of it.
Here we go.
I don't really play this live.
1, 2.
Dark skies, heavenly.
I've been gone caught in between. I've been walking the edge of the end of the line. I've been opening doors I didn't know were mine. I didn't know were mine.
I've been lost in the sound of my heart.
I've been told to leave this all behind.
I've been seeing ghosts in my head.
I've been waiting for you to blow this open, to blow this open. Lifeline, steady me.
Hard line,
Come ready me. I've been traveling farther than shadows can hide, and unraveling walls fall before my eyes, fall before my eyes.
I've been lost in the sound of my heart.
I've been told to leave this all behind.
I've been seeing
Ghosts
in my head.
I've been waiting for you to blow this open.
I've been
Lost. I've been waiting for you to blow this open, to blow this open. And I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you. And 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 I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you.
That is one of your happier, upbeat songs.
We try. Can't be all somber.
And what can you tell us about the title of this song?
So this song is based on the Greek myth of Persephone. And so the story of Persephone has Persephone being the goddess of spring being stolen away by Hades, the king of the underworld. And when her mother, Demeter, the goddess of harvest, goes to Zeus to essentially get Zeus to force Hades to give Persephone back, she can't go back to the mortal realm because she has eaten some seeds from a pomegranate. And the rule is you can't consume any like food or beverage from the underworld, or you have to stay there forever. So Zeus and Hades strike a bargain, and Persephone lives part of the year in the underworld with Hades and part of the year in the mortal world with her mother. And I kind of take exception to some translators of that myth, and there's this sort of feeling of like, oh man, Persephone, like, why'd you eat the seeds? That was dumb. But I tend to think like this is a goddess. This is the daughter of a goddess. Like she knows the rules. She knows that she's like she knows the consequences of her actions. So I like to think about that moment as sort of taking agency in your own life and sort of choosing a path that you want for yourself rather than one that has been chosen for you.
All right. I know I've mentioned this to you at least, but I think in some other life I was destined to be a music supervisor. Like when I listen to music, I like picturing like what visuals would this go with. I definitely wasn't picturing like pomegranates, but maybe like kicking off a road trip or something.
I would totally listen to the song on a road trip.
But on that note, have you guys ever reached out to like music supervisors, try to get your stuff on TV?
You know, we have not, but that is in the cards for this album. That's something we'd really like to explore.
Yeah.
Well, I think
if you know anyone, let us know.
If that doesn't get picked up, I think they're crazy.
Thank you.
All right, so what do we have next?
We got one more song for you.
Count the days.
Yeah, this was a special request. I have to admit, Robbie, I feel really badly that you came to a show once and you had one song request and I didn't see it in time. And
Was it this song?
well, yes, coincidentally, this song had been on the set list and then we had shuffled things around a little bit on stage and this was the song we cut. So I feel like I need to make it up to you. So this is Happy Love Song, i.e. Count the Days. I don't even play very much harp on the song, but we'll do it.
Ready? 1. Yeah. 1, 2. In the spring, when I leave LA, I hear your voice, though you're far away. The months are long, and I long for you, and I can't wait till I come back to you.
The days are kind and the sky is warm. I feel you move, feel it in my core. I miss your voice softly in my ear. You drive me mad, wish you were here, wish you
As I drive and I think of you, miles away, just doing what you do, makes me smile, just picturing the way that you move through the rhythms of your day, through the rhythms of your day.
see your face in the moments of my day. Feel you close, though you're far away. Hold my head high till I see you there, smiling at me, sun shining.
I'm coming home, and I'm coming back to you, chasing highway signs as I drive on through the warm dark night.
Count the days, count the days.
Comforts and stars,
Count the miles, count the
guide on my way,
Count the days, count the
can
days.
be far.
Count the miles, count the miles. Start to blind in these city lights. Even so, shine on me tonight. Take the dark, speed it through the dawn, break of day. I know you're driving on.
Count the days, count the days down. Count the miles, count the miles down. Count the days, count the days down. Count the miles, count the miles down. Every time I go away, I find how much I miss the way you look into my eyes and say I miss it, reaching every way, every
Count the
other
days,
even from the months of March
days
to May. I dream of ways
the
that I can stay
miles,
close to
count
you
the
throughout the
miles,
days I'm rolling down the
count the
freeway.
days,
Thinking
count
about my
the
final
days
days
out.
when I come home
Count
to
the
you and stay
miles,
close to you
count the
throughout the
miles
days.
out.
Count the days, count the days down. Count the miles, count the miles down. Count the days, count the days down. Count the miles, count the miles down. Count the days, count the days down. Count the miles, count the
days down. Count the miles, count the miles down.
I heard the March to May hidden in there. You had
It was.
you had one job at that concert, Beth, and you failed. But I think today more than makes up for it.
Why, thank you. I'm glad that I've finally righted the scales.
That has always been my favorite song. But after hearing the new stuff on the new album, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It might get overtaken.
May we always strive to best our own selves.
All right. That was the musical stylings of March to May, everyone. So one last time, your new album, What I Was and More, is being released this September. And you got the first single, Hylas, premiering on July 10th, right?
Yes, indeed.
All right. And if folks want to keep up on the latest with March to May, where can they find you?
They can find us on our website at www.marchtomay.com. They can find us on Spotify. That way, so we actually have 2 more singles in addition to Hylas coming out this summer. So if you follow us, you will be the first to know. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/MarchToMay band and Instagram at March to May.
All right. I guess that just wraps up the show. Before we go, what's one last thing you'd like fans to know?
How much we appreciate connecting with you. It's like the best thing ever. So especially in these COVID times when we can't necessarily see you in person, drop us a line, say hi.
All right. Darren, Beth, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to have you back again sometime in the future.
Thank you so much for having us, Robbie.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you next time on the next show. Bye.
Bye.
I heard the March to May hidden in there.